Strong personal leadership helps build effective teams. Clearly it's not the only ingredient, but it's an important ingredient because strong leaders are people that we would trust, that we would follow, that we would choose to be with. And there are many ways that people become and show and demonstrate strong leadership. But in essence, they're people that are consistent. We kind of know what we're going to get with them. And that's largely because they also know a lot about themselves and they're able to manage their own emotions around circumstances. They don't just fly off the handle. So therefore, when people are around them, they're a known quantity. And that doesn't just happen. Really powerful leaders get to know themselves first and foremost. There's a lot of work done around emotional intelligence years ago, which many people will be familiar with, which suggests that one of the, and certainly in my experience this is true, one of the gaps that occurs the more senior you become is actually you become very good at managing stakeholders, but sometimes there's still more work that needs to be done around awareness of self. And certainly the field of neuroscience these days is starting to uncover all sorts of work around the relationship between power and empathy that's very interesting from a coaching perspective and a development perspective. So certainly to build strong teams requires a number of facets and attributes, but strong leadership, knowing yourself, knowing how to manage those relationships effectively with others, how to build trust, which requires a capacity and a willingness to be vulnerable and open and asking for help. So some of the things that may fly in the face of the old versions of leadership, these are important qualities for future leaders. There's a very obvious connection between strong personal leadership and peak performance in teams. First of all, the role of the leader is paramount because the leader sets vision, the leader is responsible for driving change, managers are generally responsible for managing complexity, but the leader's role is to drive change. And so leaders are responsible not only for doing that, but for ensuring the culture on a team, for making sure that they walk the talk, whatever the talk is, for living the values, for recognising people who also walk the talk, for building trust. And trust is built in many ways, but it's about being credible, it's about being reliable, it's about being open, and it's about having an orientation towards us rather than me. So leaders set the way we do things around here on this team and have a huge part to play in driving not just average performance but peak performance. How do we communicate? Do we trust each other? Is there a great sense of camaraderie and positivity and optimism on this team? Or are we just going through the motions together because this is the job we do? So a leader's attitude, awareness of self and others, capacity to bring out the best in others is hugely important at driving peak performance. Recently, I ran a masterclass with 16 senior leaders, none of them working directly with each other, but clearly working as leaders in the same organisation. And the masterclass was all about introducing them to some new frameworks and principles around what makes peak performance in teams, and specifically the role of the leader in that team in generating performance. So, as always, the masterclass, despite its name, was highly experiential. So yes, there are frameworks, but ultimately my goal with the masterclass is always to make sure that people walk away with practical things that they will implement immediately, and that they walk away with a level of accountability amongst one another and support from each other to do that. Because as soon as they leave any kind of masterclass or training or workshop, effectively what they do is they go back into a system that doesn't know what they know. And so it's important to have support. So we create a very safe container together for the work and the conversation. It's confidential. They get to talk about the challenges that they have as well as what they do well. And they're introduced to frameworks and principles that will help them understand how people function in teams, how they function as a leader of that team, and points them to evidence, research, if that's something the organisation values, and if not, practice and experience, and really getting a sense for themselves kinesthetically of what does this really mean for me as a team leader.